Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of our complete set review of War of the Spark. I'm Evan Irwin.
I'm Aaron Campbell.
And I'm Ruben Bressler.
And we are Magic Mikes, and we are here to talk about all of these cards thanks to our friends on Kickstarter who funded this very project. And we're going to talk about all of the red cards in this video. We're going to get started here.
Well, you guys are.
Right.
I mean,
Mostly.
whatever.
Mostly me.
Mostly, but fine. The point is, we're going to start with On-Crop Invader. It's a red and 2 generic mana for a 2/2 common zombie warrior minotaur. And as long as it's your turn, On-Crop Invader has first strike. And for 1 generic mana, sacrifice another creature, On-Crop Invader gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
They've been doing this with minotaurs of various shapes and sizes where they give them first strike or conditional first strike, and then you can pay a cost to up its power. Usually it's been discard a card. This is the first time I've seen it as a sack outlet. Sack outlets are always good. This one costs mana, of course, and so it's not spectacular. This card's pretty average, but
It's fine.
it's okay.
Yeah, this is sort of a middle of the road 3 mana 2/2. It's your gray ogres. Blind Blast is next. It's a red and 2 generic mana for a common instant. It deals 1 damage to target creature. That creature can't block this turn, and you draw a card.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Blind Blast.
Blind Blast.
The fact that it can cycle itself is really big. The fact that it can be a removal spell early and also have an impact later in the game is also big. These are the kinds of cards that they've been designing for best of one. And so I'm very pleased to see this effect. I think it's going to be pretty good. I would play this in most of my, I would say at least one in most of my aggressive decks. Never take this early.
Nah.
You can always find this one late.
Yeah, this is great. This is a way to kind of get through in the late game, because usually if they have a giant zombie amassed, or whatever army, you're able to be like, okay, you have a 7/7 zombie, but everything else is crap, so like that thing can't block. I draw a card, and in we go.
Yeah.
So it helps you kind of bust through big blocks, big chunks of blockers. Bolt Bend is next. It's a bolt bend. It's a red and 3 generic mana for an uncommon instant. It costs 3 less to cast. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you change the target of target spell or ability with a single target.
Reminds me of Ferocious from Cons of Tarkir Block, and that you needed a creature of power 4 or greater to do its thing. For 1 red, is this worth it?
Probably not. I mean, I'm not really interested in this effect in red anyway.
Oh, okay.
Even if I'm playing like an Alpine Grizzly, if I just have a vanilla 4/2, an Onake Ogre, whatever's sitting around. Also, I don't think that we have one of those, do we? Do we have a vanilla 4/2 for 3 mana in this set?
I don't think so, but for me, I feel like your zombie army
mass
is going to get there, and just having 1 red, you're arguably going to be changing the target of a removal spell.
Sure.
Sometimes target player draws cards. That's the thing you might be able to bolt bend, as it were.
Story-wise, this was the moment that showed people that Ral was kind of going back to the heroic side of things. Ral famously was the bolus plant in the Izzet Guild, and in this set we see him fighting what appears to be Kefnet.
Yep.
And so this was, and there was another card that came out with this where it's like, oh, Ral's now back on the good side. Like, what happened there? And so I'm very excited to read the story and see how we got there, because it seems like the turn, or even Domri, where it's like you would think that would have gotten them some immunity, and that doesn't appear to be the case. So.
Right. Yeah, all of the Planeswalkers, the 5 Planeswalker plants that were on Ravnica that took over the 5 guilds, those being Ral, Vraska, Domri, Kaya, and Dovin, all had unique arcs that all had interesting things happen, and they all ended up in different places. And Ral's arc, no pun intended with the bolt bending, was really interesting in that it was sort of him rediscovering himself a little bit.
Would you call it shocking?
I would call it shocking.
Okay. Bond of Passion is next. 2 red, 4 generic mana for an uncommon sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Bond of Passion deals 2 damage to any other target.
Wow, this is the Boros and the Gruul coming together. Why don't we fight for what's right and let bureaucrats argue over the details? Love the flavor, love the art. Obviously, it's the best of sort of like a Boros charm type ability, and the Gruul, taking something over. I like this card.
Yeah, 6 is a lot for a sorcery. 2 damage to another target is not that much for the cost that you're getting. Threaten is a 3 mana effect on your active treasons. 2 damage is a 1, maybe 2 damage effect. 6 mana is just a lot to ask of this. I do like the design of this combination of guild symbols the best of the 5. I think that they go together the best with the Boros fist in the middle surrounded by the Gruul flames and firewood. So I really like that aspect of it, but I just don't like this card that much.
Well, when I see something like, wow, this is really expensive, right?
Yeah.
But not only is it really expensive, it's uncommon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this card is probably way better than I'm giving it any credit for.
Absolutely.
Because why are these numbers on these cards?
I mean, it makes sense if they have 2 creatures. You take the bigger one and you don't want them to chump block it, so you can ping off any little thing they have and make sure that you are able to get in there.
And it's also because amass is such a big deal in this set that you're taking their token for the turn. So.
Right, and their token could be absolutely huge, and if this takes their monster token and kills off one of their planeswalkers, that's big game.
Or it's one of the cards that had that amass insurance, where it's like a good creature that had amass, and so you want to get rid of the amass token and then have the thing.
Yeah. So again, this to me says like, I think like my initial impression was it's way too expensive, and then my next impression was like, wow, I remember those games going long at the pre-release, and something like this can be played. 2
damage to any target. A lot of planeswalkers that can't level up or get that loyalty back. So instead of devoting that creature to killing that planeswalker, if that creature is within burn range, fine, 2 damage to that, kill it. Now I can focus on you. I think there's a lot of neat lines here.
Right. If there's a Grixis control deck in draft, if you are in red and sealed, I would definitely at least try this because again, these numbers are too weird for me not to see why.
I mean, you're right that the numbers are too weird for there to be not a story behind it.
Right.
I'm going to wait for somebody smarter to play it before I start playing that card.
Burning Prophet is next. It's a red and a generic mana for a 1/3 common human wizard, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Burning Prophet gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and then you scry 1.
There's that word again. Magmajet has seen play in red decks before because, red does not want to be drawing lands. You want to make sure that you have gas for your burn deck. And so when you cast any non-creature spell, you're making the creature bigger, which you want, and then you're able to make sure that you're always online. I actually really like those.
I think the Viashino Pyromancer.
Sure.
This one doesn't deal 2 when it enters the battlefield, but it's got 3 toughness. It also
it's also a wizard.
And it's also a wizard.
So it turns on your...
We've seen this, the red decks are using Experimental Frenzy. And so if you're able to frenzy your brains out, this thing could get out of hand. Yeah. Is that Magali?
That is Matthias Kolros.
Okay, yeah, the art is beautiful.
Yeah, it's very good.
Really getting like a Rihanna vibe from it. It's nice.
Yeah, I think Burning Prophet, of the cards that say non-creature spell, this one is the one that has the most likelihood of constructed playability. It is very similar to Fire Urchin, but that Scry is much better than having Trample.
Scry with Experimental Frenzy. Be like, that's what's on top, bottom.
Exactly.
Just keep the chain going.
Oh man, that's actually pretty sick.
Yeah, just this, the additional... Scry is worth about 1/3 of a card. So if you can untap with this and play a bunch of spells on your turn, you're pretty much getting an additional card out of it, which is pretty impressive.
But if you got an External Frenzy and you shock and then scry that land at the bottom and then just keep
you're doing that every spell you cast. So you're essentially, with every link in the chain, you're making sure there's another link there, or trying to at least. That's hot.
This card is way better than I think at first glance. And it was also doing great things at the pre-release. So that was awesome. But the stay will end in death, but not the one you hope for. The stay will end in victory, but not the one you expected.
I like it.
Very nice. Chain Whip Cyclops is next. It's a red and 4 generic mana for a common Cyclops warrior. It has a red and 3 generic mana : target creature can't block this turn.
Best flavor text in the set, first of all. Urgdar Cyclops Philosopher. You say this 10th district, not Rubble Belt. But where smash happened, that Rubble Belt. Rubble Belt, state of mind.
Cyclops Philosopher are 2 words that I never thought I would see together.
Amazing.
A mana sink that you can use to pump up multiple creatures. It itself doesn't have to tap to do it. It can target itself. We've talked a lot about board stalls, and especially based on the sound of the pre-release, this was a bit of a grindy format.
Yeah.
I think this is fine.
Perfectly serviceable body is a 5 mana 4/4. Having that mana sink capability to be able to turn off those big blockers on the back end. I really like this card a lot.
Yeah, this card's sweet. It's not one of them you're going to run infinite of,
No.
But I would love to have a couple of these in sealed and one of these in draft.
And keep in mind, Rubble Belt, state of mind.
I'm in a Rubble Belt.
Where smash happened.
Where smash happened.
That Rubble Belt.
That Rubble Belt.
So what we say is sometimes bedroom Rubble Belt.
Let's get ready to
where smash
Rubble
happened.
Belt.
Where smash happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTG Cribs. This is where the smash happened.
Chandra's Pyro Helix is next. It's a red and generic mana.
And when it's left over, all you have is the door From the Gruul Guild game.
Yeah, nice.
Wow. It is a red and a generic mana for a common instant. It deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets.
This is a reprint as well. I think this was Origins is where this is from. This was serviceable. It was fine. And I anticipate it being serviceable and fine. It is 2 mana, instant speed, removal. It's able to take care of 2 tokens. Not going to do anything in standard. You don't want to have too many of these in your deck, but it is just that. It's
pretty good, though.
It's good.
I'd be okay with a couple.
It's also, I would be happy with a couple in draft.
Yeah.
2 mana, instant speed, removal is at a premium regardless.
Right.
The ability to split this up, the ability to have so many of the non-creature spell cards in your deck to go with this is a big deal.
Yeah, this card is, just sort of standard fare, as it were, but important. These are the types of cards that sort of make the formats work and make red interesting. Chandras Triumph is next. That's a red and 1 generic mana for an uncommon instant. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. And if you control a Chandra planeswalker, it deals 5 instead. That's not Dovin dying, by the way.
I don't get that.
I had to clarify. I don't see how you survive that, but...
The Triumph is not killing Dovin. It's capturing him with fire whips. I don't understand what is happening.
Her triumph came not from achieving her ideal self, but from rejecting the idea of perfection.
Doesn't help me explain what's happening to Dovin.
Plays into none of Chandra's, themes. Or since when did she care about perfection anyway?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't get that part. The card itself, though, 2 mana, instant speed, 3 damage, perfect. If you have a Chandra, even better. But certainly, premium removal and limited regardless.
Yeah, you're going to play every copy that you get. You're going to draft every copy that you see if you're in red. It's a terrific removal. I just don't understand the flavor, to be honest. Cyclops Electro is next. It's a red and 4 generic mana for a 4/2. That is an uncommon Cyclops Wizard. When it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to target creature an opponent controls, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard.
Beacon Bolt saw play. That was a card that I never thought would have. Even just Ralzeric itself doing its thing. And I understand that Ral had exile, but still, I could see this seeing play.
And it's also a 4/2. Notable because that's calling back to Flametongue Kavu. So this has Flametongue. I think that's a direct homage. This is it's 5 mana. This could have any type of stats that it could possibly want. But being a 4/2, it is trying to harken back to the Flametongue Kavu. You have a ton of the Drake's deck, for example, is going to have a field day with this card, being able to come in and pretty much kill anything that you want.
Right.
Obviously, the one-eyed giant Cyclopses. We had Erotic Cyclops as our preview card from a couple of sets ago.
I don't know. All I know is, I don't think this is going to make any Drake's deck. I don't think it's going to make standard. But I think in limited, it's great.
Yeah.
Limited, it's fantastic. Even just having 2 in your graveyard is plenty to be able to shock an opponent. It's going to fall somewhere in between Volley Veteran.
It's to a creature opponent.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's still going to fall somewhere in between Volley Veteran and Flametongue Kavu overall.
You can blink it.
You can blink it. It does cost 5, so that is quite a bit. But, I would not be surprised to see it as a one-of in those kind of spell-heavy decks. But you're right. This is mostly a limited card. Very good limited card.
Very good limited card, though. I would be happy to play all the copies in my red-blue spell deck. Absolutely. Demolish is next, and it sucks. But here's why that's good.
Demolish.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But here's why it's good. It's a red and 3 generic mana. It's a common sorcery that destroys target artifact or land. This is bad. This is a bad rate. It's a bad card.
It's not a good card.
You're not going to play it. But here's what's cool about Demolish, is that even if you're just starting to play Magic, you go, wait a minute, that card sucks. Yeah. And you go, yeah, that card sucks. And they go, high five. They figured it out. They understood that this is not a good rate for any of these things.
Here's the other thing that's good about Demolish, is that it gives us a chance to talk about how Aurelia has a scorched earth policy, which I really appreciate. For every inch of land they take from us, we take it back or we burn it, give them nothing. Oh. That is Boros. That is a fire main angel. I love that.
Check out that flame path through. Absolutely terrific. But again, and there was a conversation with, there was Patrick Sullivan and someone else. Someone was complaining that, why is this the stupidest thing when I print it? And he's like, well, you can recognize that it's bad and you can see that it's off rate and new players can appreciate that. And it feels good to think that you figured out, oh, wait a minute, I don't think this card's very good. And that's reinforced. It mainly just sucks. Devouring Helium is next. It's a red and 2 generic mana for a 2/2 uncommon Hellion. And as it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures and or planeswalkers. And if you do, it enters with twice that many +1/+1 counters
Good
on it.
sack outlet.
Yes, this is literally has devour, the key word from a long time ago. And so even if you sacrifice one creature, it becomes a 4/4. Very easy to make this a 3-mana 4/4.
Oh, yeah.
It does have a cost, of course, but I think that this is a perfectly reasonable card.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that it eats all of your uncommon planeswalkers when you're done using them, essentially. If you only amass one and that's pretty much all you got, well, hell, I'll make this a 4/4. Thanks.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunities with this card to be really, really good.
Get those death triggers.
Moving on. Dreadhorde Arcanist. Arcanist?
Arcanist.
Oh, my God. It's 3 different... Arcanist!
Arcanist.
Arcanista!
Arcanist.
It is a red and a generic mana for a 1/3 rare zombie wizard with trample. For some reason, whenever it attacks, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist's power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card will be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. I've already seen them playtesting with this on the Versus series.
So this is a bit of a red version of a Snapcaster Mage.
A little bit.
A little bit. The reason why you give it trample is so that when you play spells that bump its power,
That matters.
that matters.
Yeah.
So you can, for example, Mighty Leap is an example here, where you target it with Mighty Leap pre-combat, attack with your 3/5, and then cast Mighty Leap again.
Right.
That would be the reason to do it. The real selling point here is, of course, bolts. Things like Lava Spike, lots of things like that. There aren't a ton of those in Standard, because all of your bolts actually cost 3, and so those don't get rebought with Dreadhorde Arcanist. So it's going to be tougher to pull those off. This is the card that goes best with Defiant Strike, for example. This is a card that goes well with those 1-mana pumps to go to rebuy those, get that Snapcaster Mage effect.
Does Modern want this?
See, I saw people testing in Modern with this, and I'm not sure that they do, but it's worth testing.
Free
and that's
spells are
scary.
free spells.
Free spells are free spells. Being able to rebuy things from your graveyard is always worth it. Direfleet Daredevil sees play in Standard, and Snapcaster Mage, it is not. But even that sees some play. I would be surprised if Dreadhorde Arcanist did not find its home in Standard.
Oh, yeah.
I would not be shocked if it found a home in Modern. And it's possible it finds a home in Legacy.
Well, we've got Tarmogoyf, and we've got Dark Confidant.
Sure.
And we got Stoneforge Mystic.
Sure.
And we've got Snapcaster. And Young Pyromancer is just not enough
It's not that
to be in
anymore.
those ranks. And this very well
It's
could
close.
be.
It could be.
If it pays, if it works out. If it works out, I think this card's amazing. And it has an infinite potential. And as this is a rare, if you see it limited, you should grab it. You should play it if it's in your colors. If you can pump it and get a counter on it and start proliferating, that's terrific. But there's too much value, whether it's just a 1/3 blocker in the early game or it actually rebuys an awesome spell later, to not play this card.
Yeah.
It's just too good that way. So we'll see where it gets constructed, though. Really exciting. Dreadhorde Twins is a hell of a rate. Red and 3 generic mana for a 2/2 uncommon zombie jackal warrior. And when it enters the battlefield, you amass 2, and zombie tokens you control have trample.
Love it.
Yeah.
This card is real.
Really good. One of the interesting flavor things that I like about this card is that it reminds of a story about the race of jackal people.
I feel like this is a card we saw before they got Lazatapped.
Yes.
Okay.
I forget the name of the jackal people from Amonkhet, but they are born as twins.
The Kenra?
The Kenra. Yeah, the Kenra are born as twins by nature. That is how they are. They all are twins.
Nice.
And so to call that back here, even on a completely different world, even a completely different context, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and the fact that this thing makes your amass token that much bigger, it's 4 power, 4 toughness over 2 different bodies, if it's just that. It makes your giant amass creature now have trample, which is super important. This card is just straight value. It's easily, if not first pickable, early pickable, always in your red decks. You're never not going to play this card if you're in these colors. It's just too good. Finale of Promise. 2 red and X. For a mythic sorcery, you may cast up to 1 target instant card and or up to 1 target sorcery card from your graveyard, each with converted mana cost X or less without paying their mana costs. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. And if X is going to give it to you, Copy each of those spells twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. Now, in Magical Christmas Land, you have Monastery Swiftspear, followed by Lava Spike, and another, and Bolt. And then turn, and then turn 3, another land, and this gets both the Bolt and the Lava Spike, and literally that is exactly 20.
Yeah.
That's exactly 20.
Yeah, there's been some discussion about this on the vintage boards in terms of what rate you could, what is the lowest rate you can cast this at and still have it be worth it. And I mean, even a 2, you look at the Eternal formats that have 1 mana cantrips, like your Brainstorms, your Recalls, your Time Walks, being able to hit those things just for 2, I mean, that's fine. And so I think this is something that people are going to be testing, and I'm excited about it.
This also goes in the 0 cost sorcery decks, either Restore Balance or Living End, alongside Electro Dominance. You can play a mono-red version of either of those decks now with Faithless Looting to get the sorcery into the graveyard, with Finale of Promise. This is the most exciting of the Finale cycle to me, based on those combo potentials.
Yeah, it's just, it's one that has so much power and potential, and it kind of just shows how unbelievably spoiled vintage players are, where they're like, if you paid 2 red and 2 generic mana and you got to draw 3 cards and takes an extra turn, and they're like, really? Is that enough? Are we happy with that? Like, oh my god.
Is that the best we can do here?
Really? Why does it have to cost so much? But this card is amazing. Play this thing in your limited decks because there's just too much value. But this is really a constructed card. Goblin Assailant is a bear. Red and generic mana for a 2/2 common Goblin Warrior.
Woof.
Woof.
Nope. Not doing it.
No?
Well, woof is a versatile term. It can also mean something's a stinker.
Okay.
So you can be like, woof.
As in, like, tough.
It's how you say it if you're like, woof. Whereas if you like it, you're like, woof. Like, it can be infliction. It's like girl. Like, if you're just like, girl. It can be like, what you doing? Or it can be like, girl! Like, this card's amazing. It's how you say it.
I can be like, Ruben. Or I can be like, Ruben! What?
As Rich feverishly adjusts the sound.
Yeah, right. Look,
Evan's yelling again.
I'm good with the Goblin Warrior 2/2 for 2. This is you're always going to play your 2/2s for 2 in limited, especially in an aggressive red deck.
Flavor text is great.
Yep, flavor text is fantastic. Really flavorful for the Ravnica goblins in particular. What he lacks in patience, intelligence, empathy, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, I forgot what I was talking about.
It's okay. The point is, it's a bear. It's on your curve. Don't play a ton of them. Certainly don't draft this thing unless you have to. It's fine. Goblin Assault Team is next. It's a red and 3 generic mana for a 4/1 common Goblin Warrior with haste. And when it dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control.
Okay.
That's neat.
You've seen a couple sack outlets already in red that you can easily feed this to. You get your 4/1, and if things are getting a little too gamey, you sacrifice it.
Right. This is actually better in like the control decks, weirdly, because you want to have an empty board to attack with your 4/1 haste. Yeah. So you play a 2-mana removal spell on their 2/2, a 3-mana removal spell on their 3/3, and then you drop an assault team and go to town. It's like not good though. I'm not playing this card that often.
I think you actually should.
A goblin you won't play?
No. You should here, and here's why, okay? This is exactly why you should play this card.
It's a 4/1 with haste, and it reminds you of Giant Solifuge, so you just have like a rule that you want to play it. Swinging in the red zone for
my team. Yeah, but
for the assault team.
There you go. Look, the whole point of War of the Spark and why it's so different is nothing's busting out making infinite tokens.
Sure.
Nothing's making a token when it enters the battlefield unless it's pumping up the amass token.
Right.
So that's really the only token you have to worry about jumping in front of this guy.
Okay.
Everything else that's 1 mana or less, obviously you're aware of and isn't crazy powerful, but at least it can take out something. So for me, what this does is it trades for their worst creature and it puts a +1/+1 counter that you can start to proliferate on thereafter. And that to me is value. So if they're tapped out with their creatures, and again, they're not making any random tokens, you can just get in there for 4, and then next turn you're going to get their worst creature, put something, and then go proliferate crazy. So I think this card is actually much better than it would be in any other environment.
That's fair.
Yeah, this card is like just trash in anything that makes tokens.
Right.
But you're making 1 token.
That's fine.
Yeah. Grim Initiate is next. It's 1 red mana for a 1/1 common zombie warrior with first strike, and when it dies, you amass 1.
Now this card's
real.
This is Doom Traveler. This is Blister Pod. This is amazing. This card's really good.
Yeah, this card is better than Doom Traveler, better than Hunted Witness, because you're killing both halves of Hunted Witness, and they don't get any lifelink out of it. So usually you're like, oh, you kill my Hunted Witness, whatever, now I get to gain life. It's like, no. Grim Initiate's awesome, and if you're playing on this Amass deck, you're like, yeah, whatever, man, kill it, I don't care.
Yeah,
sure.
I really like Grim Initiate. I think that this is obviously better in Constructed than it is in Limited.
It's true.
This might not be able to sneak its way into the red deck, but if you've ever played the red deck in Standard against Hunted Witness, you know how annoying that is. And so this being able to stand in front of, with the front half, stand in front of 1 toughness creatures like Vaishino Pyromancer, being able to stack the first strike with shock to be able to deal with opposing chain whirlers even. I think Grim Initiate certainly has a chance of doing something.
Yeah, I mean, Fanatical Firebrand's not going to be around forever.
Right.
It's going to rotate, and you're going to need a 1-drop in your red deck, and this is going to probably be it, because it's very, very powerful. In Limited, again, you're in an environment where Amass is awesome, and you're going to be amassing all the time. And if nothing else, you're the aggressive deck, so you want a creature to come back after they deal with this one. So there's very little downside to this card. Heartfire is next for a red and generic mana. It is a common instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, and it deals 4 damage to any target.
Plays well with Grim Initiate. You sacrifice that to this. You still get a 1/1 body, and you're down 4 damage. Seems fine.
This is a high rate. Having this at instant speed is huge because you can respond to removal spells with it. Being able to deal it to any target is huge. Reckless Abandon was a card that saw play. Now, it saw play during Urza's Destiny, but it still saw play.
Right.
We've seen things like Thud, for example, or Fling. Having this effect at instant speed to be able to fling a token at something is a huge deal.
Oh, yeah. And the idea that, these uncommon planeswalkers, they're done. They're at 1 loyalty. They're not doing crap. Well, you're just going to sling it for 4. The flavor text is fantastic. The mage looked within and realized there was still 1 piece of fuel to burn. That's kind of sad in many ways.
Pretty sad.
Yeah.
But I like it.
In this card, I don't know. This is one of those cards where in Constructed,
it's possible.
It's on a good rate.
This is borderline Constructed playable in the right kind of deck, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, now that you have Grim Initiate, for example, that could literally change the red deck as a result. Take out the Firebrands, put in the Grim Initiates, and then you can play Heartfire and not just lose your crap every time you have to sacrifice a creature. So the card's really interesting. And of course, you should pick that early and play it because it's removal and all that good stuff. Honor the God Pharaoh is a red and 2 generic mana for a common sorcery. Has an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card. You then draw 2 cards and amass 1.
So pretty expensive for a Tormenting Voice, obviously, which is a 2 mana card and has always been a 2 mana card.
Right.
So for 3 mana, you only get 1 Rummage, but you do get to amass. I'll probably end up playing this card anyway because this effect is too valuable.
Right.
This card is much more similar to Rummaging Goblin than it is to any of the other really good of this effect.
Sure, but the amass token is, the amass army token is just so good. Everything is just fueling these zombie tokens over and over again. So, I can just definitely see sealed builds where I'm just anything that says amass on it, just I'm going to put it in this pile.
And this card is much better in sealed because you want to have the critical mass of amass tokens, but you also want the loot because it's much more important in sealed to have this effect. And so that's where this is going to find a home. Not going to see playing Constructed. Don't pick it high.
Yeah. We have a special guest for Ilharg, the Raise Boar. Let's see who it is.
Hi, I'm Wilder New Year. I'm a vintage player. As a vintage player, I tend to have a lot of money in cards. I have Power, I have Black Border Foreign Duels, I have Libraries of Alexandria, I even have a set of Bizarre Bagdads. But I'm not sure what I ever want to do with these. However, what card is really money is Ilharg the Raise Boar. As a 6/6 for 5 with Trample, it already passed the vanilla test. But on top of all that, it allows you to put creatures into play tapped and attacking as soon as turn 5. So, you can have things like Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, Master of Cruelties, or Blightsteel Colossus attacking your opponent as soon as turn 6. What's more is it's immune to most removal spells, as when it's destroyed or exiled, it goes directly back into your library. Well, that's all the time I have for now. Time to get these babies back in the vault.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, longtime fan of the show. Nice dagger at Aaron with those bizarres. Yeah, I love Ilharg. I think Ilharg is a great card. The fact that the only god to have survived Amonkhet was the red god. We don't have Hazaret here.
Right.
And the Raised Boar has always sort of been on the horizon. It's the gods of deep earth that the Gruul pray to.
Right.
So giving that a payoff is awesome.
It's huge.
The thing is, when this story was happening, I was like, how much more can we take in this story? Like, we've already got 80,000.
Hold my bacon.
We've got 80,000 planeswalkers coming. We got this huge battle. We've got all of these personal intrigue stories. Can we really get a Raised Boar? Like, that is a lot of things happening.
I really like the connection between Nakia and this character. Nakia also kind of having that ridge there.
Yep.
It seems to be a part of this character. Like,
Yes.
That's the reason why she looks that way. This card is fun. I know at least one person who's building an EDH deck around this. They're calling it Through the Bacon. I think it's great.
Yeah.
This is a card that casuals live for.
Well, for those who don't know, it's 2 red, 3 generic mana for a 6/6 mythic boar
Which
god.
is fine.
A legendary boar god. That's awesome. It has trample. Whenever it attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. You return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. And when it dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. It's going to start and just killing you. It's going to kill you. It's going to keep going until you're dead. That's its job.
Yeah, really a big fan of this card. This was the first of the gods that we saw from this set, the only non-zombie god.
Yeah.
It was serendipitous that it worked out that way.
I'm
Thanks to the
still
storyline.
confused, and I know you explained it to me the other day, but I still don't understand why this has the same godlike quality of the Eternals.
So Ilharg, the Raised Boar,
Right.
is a god of deep earth that Nikia and others who worship the old ways pray to. This is a primordial being. The fact that it actually has the creature type boar is actually a little surprising to me. I always thought that was symbolic. And so for it to be actually a boar god is a little surprising to me. This is essentially a Nephilim. This is, if you recall from the original Ravnica storyline, there were 5 Nephilims that came about based on the events that happened, and they were these ultra-powerful primordial beings. Ilharg, I always thought was a Nephilim that was called by a different name. And, just like how different societies have different names for, some people call it Bigfoot, some call it Yeti. That's the same thing I thought with Ilharg, was some people call them Nephilim, some people call them the Raised Boar.
Right, I guess my concern is that this is a Ravnica god.
Yes.
I would think it would have a different ability than the Amonkhet gods.
Right. So I think that is a function of this just being a magic set.
Okay.
And they wanted to have some sort of cycle, connectivity.
Because when I look at that, when I see that, I assume that he's one of them because they have the same god ability.
Right.
Which was very confusing to me. Where it's like, if he had a different immortality clause, I might not be as confused.
I agree with that.
When I see that, I'm like...
My guess is that Ilharg probably began development with a different ability, but in order to clean up and streamline the story and streamline the set, they just gave it the same one.
I
Okay.
know this is a long shot.
Oh, God.
But I still want Hazaret to come through that portal like a wrestling event and just...
Oh my God, that's Hazaret's music? I don't think it's happening this time.
Oh my God, that would make me so happy.
If there's no gods, somebody's got to watch the kids back on Amonkhet.
We'll talk when the cameras are off.
All I know is Ilharg is amazing. This thing is a limited super bomb and will absolutely demolish your opponent not close.
Yeah.
First pick, Windmill Slam, always play every time. Is super exciting, and I don't know. Will it hit older formats? Maybe. I guess.
Possible.
Like,
I mean, through the breaching this to be able to cheat out another thing, this thing with sneak attack is very exciting. So
yeah, maybe. I mean, they keep pushing them, and this is a pushed card. All right, next up is Invading Manticore. It is a red and 5 generic mana for a common zombie Manticore. It is a 4/5 that enters the battlefield and amasses 2. So it is 6 power, 7 toughness over 2 bodies. This thing's amazing.
that's a lot. That's a lot of power and toughness.
For 6 mana, you're getting a lot.
At common. It seems like, so they gave a 5 colorless and a colored mana common plus a thing to every color so far.
Right, black lost a life and draw a card.
Black lost life and draw a card. White gained 5 life.
Right.
Blue proliferated.
Okay.
And this makes a 2/2.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's nice that they've given you these common top-end things to be able to fight with. This one in particular, functioning with the Amass deck. I'm not sure how relevant the Amass 2 is going to be on turn 6, but the extra body is certainly super relevant as well.
It's going to be very important. At that point, you probably have a 4-4 or a 3-3 hanging out, and this thing kind of just pushes it over the top. Yeah, this is going to be a terrific top end. Not a card you want to play a ton of, but I want 2 in my sealed deck, and I want 1 in my draft deck. Because this is the
I just love how gorgeous Lazotep is. I wish it were real.
I know, right?
It's beautiful. The mirror sheen blue. I want a set of dice that are made of Lazotep.
Yeah. Jaya's greeting. She says, "What's up?" For red and generic mana, it's a common instant. It deals 3 damage to target creature, and you scry 1. This card's fantastic.
Card's amazing removal.
Yeah.
Again, scrying being a huge deal. Being able to deal 3 at instant speed in limited, always playable. Every single time you have 2 mana, deal 3 at instant speed, it is never not playable. Furthermore, Grandmother Carol Keep showing back up, Jaya being my favorite person. Pie bet's
took a pie for her.
Pie bet's notwithstanding. I just love Jaya, and I love her so much, and she's great.
Jaya is great. This is good removal. So you always pick it early. First pick it if you have to.
Right. Out of a bad pack, you can first pick this for sure.
Oh yeah. Crankoh, 10 Street Kingpin is a red and 2 generic mana for a 1/2 rare legendary goblin. Whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then create that many 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to Crankoh's power.
This is another beloved creature from the lore that people were so excited about. Crankoh having a long history in Commander. People were so excited that this card was back. And Goblins, I feel like we've been on the cusp of there being a good Goblin deck in Standard. We have a lot of the pieces there, but we've always just been missing 1 or 2 cards. And as we all know, sometimes a strategy needs is just the 1 card to push it over.
We have War Chief to give this haste. We have plenty of abilities to grow this even without just itself. But if you just get in the red zone once, it's already paid dividends. This is also the first Crankoh who is a character from Ravnica in a Ravnica set. Because Crankoh Mob Boss was a core set. We're still missing Yeva. Yeva, Nature's Herald, is a character from Ravnica, the Plane, whom we have not seen in a Ravnica set. Don't know where Yeva is, but Crankoh featuring...
Was she from Ravnica?
Yeah, Yeva's a green mage from Ravnica, from the Celestia side of things.
Huh, I knew what her card did, and I knew what set she was in, but I had no idea.
Yeah. Crankoh, I just love the flavor of this. Crankoh's Way is the introductory adventure in the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and so you get to run into Crankoh pretty much immediately when you buy the book.
Nice.
The art is spectacular, with all of his minions in the background being really goblin-like, really reckless and riotous, whereas Crankoh in the foreground is being a little bit more careful with his consideration.
Nicer clothes.
I think he's physically holding a Chrome Mox. I think that is literally the art for Chrome Mox.
This art is great.
And the light from the street pouring in. I just love everything about this card.
Yeah, it's really sweet. Crankoh, they're already playtesting this in different constructed builds for Standard. It's just there's too much value not to test it.
Yeah.
When you're attacking with a 2/3 that makes 2 1/1s, that's just way too much value not to try.
You can proliferate it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so this card is, I think, pushed for constructed. This is what the red decks are going to want to do. This is going to be a 4 of in the aggro decks.
It's also important to note that his power is not necessarily equal to the counters. So if he only has 1/1/1 counter on it, but you put on a heroic strike, he'll still have a higher power, and so it's not necessarily the counters; it's the total power.
Yeah. I mean, just giant growth this thing and get 5 counters or 5 goblins or whatever. Right. Like, oops, all goblins.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Mizium Tank is also very good. 2 red and a generic mana for a rare artifact vehicle. It is a 3/2 with trample. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell,
there's that phrase again.
Mizium Tank becomes an artifact creature and gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and you crew it for just 1 mana.
I love this card.
Yeah. This card is really
This card is amazing. I think that, well, first of all, it's a 3-drop that doesn't get wrathed. So that's huge. It plays very, very well with the current red build. Where even if you're dropping an experimental frenzy, this can attack that turn. In a pinch, this can block if you really need it to. Shock your thing, block your other thing with your Mizium Tank. It doesn't even need... I mean, this could be crew 10, and you never crew it, and it would still be very, very, very good. I think that the odds of you crewing this thing with creatures is like 10% of the time.
I mean,
love it.
you want to shock. Shock them and hit them for 4.
Yes.
And say go.
Yeah.
Like, that's fantastic.
Renegade Freighter is the closest that we've had to this in a limited sense. This is much better than Renegade Freighter,
right?
Because it's almost always a 4/3, sometimes a 5/4. It's boy, is this a card.
Yeah, this is a card that's firing on all cylinders in a way that the submarine isn't. Like, this just all works. Like, you feel like and I'm sure that there were some knobs that were tweaked to get this to this point, but it doesn't feel so obvious as it does with the submarine. Like, this just is the package. It's like, trample, it's a tank, it makes sense. You mentioned the crew, but you don't really need to do it. I love this. I just wish the submarine could have been more like this.
The fact that it's got trample, it's just like,
it's
you really want to block this?
Yes!
Is that what you want to do?
I love it.
Because then I go shock, and then I trample over your crap, and it still lives, and you still can't wrath it. Like, wow. They said they needed to give vehicles color in order to make them powerful again, and they have.
And they did.
Nahiri's Stone Blades is red and generic mana. For a common instant, up to 2 target creatures get +2/+0 until end of turn. And this is the perfect kind of like accidental spell that runs into Crankoh and is awesome.
Right.
You're just like, oh, I'm sorry, I just boop boop.
Can you choose the same target twice?
No.
Okay.
Up to 2 targets.
Yeah.
This card is Blades of Valus Vel without Shapeshifter.
Put it on
or
the
without
Mizium
Changeling.
tank.
Yeah, so you can target... well, you can't actually target the Mizium tank with this until you turn it on first.
Have they done anything like Blades of Valus Vel since?
Wait a minute, though. Oh, so you have to have a target to even cast
Well, you
it.
can it says up to, so you can target 0.
Yeah.
It's just that up to 0 creatures, like this will turn on the tank. It just won't get the bonus,
okay,
the
that's
+2/+0
tricksy.
bonus.
All right, I see.
Right.
I don't think that they've printed Blades of Valus Vel, even though we had a heroic set that was like 2 target creatures get stuff, and it was a whole cycle, things like Triton Tactics.
Right.
This one hints towards heroic returning. We've had a couple of hints towards heroic coming back and being something.
Right.
And Stoneblades is the clearest signal to me of that. This is solid. Blades of Valus Vel is okay.
It was always okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, this is a fine combat trick. It's honestly, it's above rate. I mean, like
It
2
is.
mana for +2/+0 on 2 different creatures is a huge.
Gonna be good in
Earthen Arden World.
Swing and a myth.
right. Gonna be good in the white-red flyers strategy with your Pegasus Couriers, and gonna be good in the blue-red spells deck as well.
Naheb, Dread Horde Champion.
Third time around.
Is 2 red, 2 generic mana for a 5/4 rare legendary zombie Minotaur warrior with trample. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. And if you do, draw that many cards and add that much red mana. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of type line as well. Legendary creature, zombie Minotaur warrior. Naheb is a character I have never really attached to, even as a red mage, someone who likes Minotaurs. I just never figured out exactly who Naheb is and what they're all about. They're coming back as a zombie, I guess.
I think what he is the heavyweight champion of the world.
That's what it looks
So
like.
if I understand the storyline correctly, Naheb was one of the first initiates that you meet when you go to Amonkhet. Obviously, he does well, and so he moves on.
In the trials,
becomes the thing that Naheb the Eternal. Naheb the Eternal is killed in the storyline by Samut, I believe, who I believe either decapitates him or removes his spine, or what is thought to be like a final act, but obviously he's brought back again, and now he's here again. I don't understand why we're bringing him back so many times. Like, I think it was cute that we made a point about him, and like the Eternal was very horrifying of like, oh my god, this is the big reveal of what Bolas has really been up to. But the third time around, it's just like...
Like Naheb.
If he's the first, then I guess we kind of have to bring him back. He also continues the theme of the previous Naheb with the red mana not leaving phases. Interesting card. I mean...
It's very fetch. They keep trying to make fetch happen.
Right.
And I'm just not
They're just like,
convinced.
well, what about this Naheb?
Yeah,
And you're
it's like, no, we're good.
Like, what about
just,
this Naheb?
and just as good as the other cards the other legends have been on rate, and we're like, automatic first pick, you play this and everything. Like, 5/4 trample's fine for 4. It's really good.
No, it's good, and I'll still play it.
And I'll still play it. I'm not sure this is a windmill slam first pick. There are probably uncommons that I'd rather have in my deck than this.
I mean,
Probably.
In red, probably not.
Probably not. It's
I guess my concern is red's also not known for having extra cards in your hand. So it's like, so you can discard in a number of cards.
Well, you discard your random lands and stuff.
This to me it's a commander.
Okay, yeah.
It's meant to be a commander.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and stay a commander, and that's where it lives and is the most powerful. Otherwise, it's just good rate.
Yeah, it's a good rate.
4 mana, 5/4 trample, sure, whatever. Raging Crotch.
Raging Crotch. Raging Crotch. Rage. Okay.
All right. For red and 2 generic mana, that is a 4/3 common beast that cannot attack alone.
Yeah, really good. There's a number of effects in this set where you want to have a creature that has power 4 or greater.
Yep.
This is the cheapest one that you're going to get. We don't have the vanilla 4/2 like we have in core sets a lot of the time. And so I think that this is perfectly reasonable.
Wow. That's there's Crotch Wranglers.
Yes. We'll get to those in green.
I mean, that's better than having Crotch Crickets, am I right?
That's true.
Wow.
If your crunch lasts for longer than 4 hours, consult your doctor.
I wish.
If your crunch is raging, you might need some medication.
Wow. You'll need some salve put on that.
That's right.
All right. So this card in and of itself as a 4 mana 4/3 is fine. If you're in the aggressive deck, you're probably going to draft a little bit higher, but you should be getting this middle to late of the pack. And if you're in sealed, depends. I think it really depends if you're more of aggressive strategies, because I think sealed for this is going to be really slow, and this is probably not very good at it.
The other interesting thing about Raging Crotch to me is that it can block alone.
Yes.
So it's a 4/3 blocker for 3.
Right.
Which is fine a lot of the time.
Right. It doesn't have that Wojak veteran problem.
Right.
Of, well, it has to block with somebody as well as blah, 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 as well as attack. So that's actually really nice.
Yeah.
That's a good upside. Samet Sprint.
Well, first of all, it's Samet's Sprint.
Oh my god. For 1 red mana, it is a common instant. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains haste until end of turn, and you scry 1.
Scry 1.
Yes, you scry 1. This is, beyond scry 1, this is the activated ability of Samet that has a Planeswalker card in the set. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
There was a card similar to this from Pharaoh's that was one. It was Titanic Strength. It was
Something
1
like
red.
that.
It was like 3/1 in the scry.
+3/+1 in a scry.
That's all play.
Yeah.
Like in competitive decks.
Yeah, that was Titans something.
Yeah.
This one gives haste, which is a huge deal. I will be playing this in my Itali commander deck, because I want any way to give it haste for 1 mana that I can possibly get. Samet Sprint is a powerful effect, another hint towards potentially having heroic return. +2/+1 is no joke. Scrying, of course, being relevant, and yeah, I think this card's really good.
Right. And if you had backed the Kickstarter, you would understand what Samut's Spirit means. Sarkhan's Catharsis is a red and 4 generic mana for a common instant. It is the best lava axe ever. It deals 5 damage to target player or planeswalker.
Yeah, nice. I like this. I like the name. I like the idea behind the card. I like that every little planeswalker got their own moment and got to have an additional scene in addition to just their card.
Right.
I thought that was a really clever way of telling the story of this set. It didn't take up too much space. It was 30 extra cards on top of the 30-some-odd planeswalkers. Sarkhan, in particular, being a character that we had a whole year that we focused on during the Khans and Dragons storyline, with Fate Reforged right there in between.
And Sarkhan kind of had this one. He's been sitting on this one for a while, so good on him.
Yeah, absolutely. And who doesn't like Dragon Flamethrower Arms?
Yes, that's amazing.
Really good.
I'm ready for Dragon Arms.
Yes.
I'm okay with that. This is a card that is going to be at the top of your curve, but Lava Axe was just never playable for me, whereas this will absolutely be playable because you can hit creatures, and that's the tipping point.
No, cannot hit creatures. Can only target planeswalkers.
It can hit their planeswalkers.
Right.
Okay, so that's not the tipping point for me, but it can hit their planeswalkers, and they're going to have 2 or 3 of those things.
The tipping point for me is that it's instant. I think that's huge.
That is huge.
Being able to do this whenever you want to. If your opponent is like, here's Kiora, use it. And I'm like, all right, 5 it. Deal it a little bit of extra damage, and we've cleaned up the board. That's right. Wow. That song scares me now because of the movie.
Right. We all have, doppelgangers. It's fine. Spellgorger Weird is a red and 2 generic mana for a 2/2 common weird, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on it.
This is the best of the cycle of non-creature, because this thing gets a counter forever?
Proliferate much? Thanks.
Yikes.
Seems good. Every time kill that, put a counter on this, kill this, put a counter on this.
And when we discussed the blue weird earlier, and I felt like the art was discordant and odd, this one somehow feels right. You have the spell returner weird in the lower right-hand corner, just like you had this one in the lower right-hand corner of the previous one. But it feels correct. It feels balanced and feels correct. I still don't get weirds in this set.
There also doesn't appear to be much synergy between the two. So it's like you'd have to sacrifice the blue one to get one spell to boost this one?
Yeah, they certainly serve different purposes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the power level of this common is just really
very high.
For a common, again, to the point where I'm like, wow, I bet there's probably a blue-red spells deck and Pauper that would be totally happy to play this thing.
Kiln Fiends he's played.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this gets counters that stay, which is great. This card is going to be very, very good in the red aggressive decks that have lots of non-creature spells. It's going to be in the blue-red spells deck, which is going to be an all-star in that deck.
Right.
And this is also great because this is one of those cards that's going to come late because not everybody's going to be playing that weird blue-red spell deck thing. But you're going to be like, oh man, this is awesome. Because this is exactly what you want on turn 3. Tybalt's Rager is a red and generic mana for an uncommon 1/2 devil, and when it dies, it does 1 damage to any target, as devils are wont to do. And for a red and generic mana, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
I love the flavor text of Judith going, find out what that is. I like its energy. Like, the Rakdos are all about their devils, and I think that's great that she's like, I want that.
Yeah, I've always had a soft spot for Tybalt. I think that the experiment that they tried with Tybalt was, it did not work to make a 2-mana planeswalker.
Right.
But I've always liked the flavor behind Tybalt, the idea of the character. This card is fine. It is a devil, and so when it dies, it gets to deal the 1 extra damage. We have a couple of other instances of that, specifically Tybalt's planeswalker version of himself in this set. This is a Ashmouth Hound, I think was the most recent version of the 1/2 for 2 that can pump +2/+0 whenever you pay mana into it.
Okay.
Card was fine, usually traded up.
It should trade up.
And it's also a mana sink.
Right.
So I'm okay with Tybalt's Rager. The other thing is that this does trade with 2/2s and 3/2s.
Right.
Because of the dies trigger. So this one is better than those. I'm perfectly happy with a Tybalt's Rager or 2 in my deck.
Yeah. If I'm in red, I'm happy to run any copies of these that I have.
Oh, yeah.
Because, again, you just sink all your mana into it. It helps kill their gigantic zombie token that they probably have. And deals 1 damage to something else on the way out. Like, oh, okay, I'll pump this, kill your zombie token, kill the rest of your uncommon planeswalker off, so there's no chance you proliferate that up later. That, to me, is just good value.
Yeah.
Our last red card here is Turret Ogre. It's a red and 3 generic mana for a 4/3 common Ogre warrior with reach. And when Turret Ogre enters the battlefield, if you control another creature with power 4 or greater, it deals 2 damage to each
There's that
opponent.
ferocious again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. This is what you follow up with Raging Crotch.
Yeah.
The 2 damage is pretty incidental. It's not that great. Having reach is relevant in mono red, which I like. And so your red-black deck is randomly going to be able to stand in front of stuff. So card's fine.
It's okay. It's just kind of odd.
It is kind of odd.
Yeah, it's just it's some odd numbers in terms of 4/3, which is okay. It's got reach, which is felt like a development change, you know what I mean? Like there was not necessarily a reason for this to have reach, and they said, wait a minute, there's no other red cards that have reach, so we better get something.
Then they named it Turret, which now it makes sense that you're firing from a high tower.
Right.
They tied it together with the name.
Right. I think they sort of made it work, but this feels like a very developmental card.
I agree.
Red needed it. They were there for it. The end. That said, that does end all of the red cards in War of the Spark. We certainly appreciate you guys hanging out here as we go through the rest of the cards. We're going through green next. We hope you join us then. Until then, I am Evan Irwin.
I'm Aaron Campbell.
I'm Ruben Bressler.
And we are the Magic Mics, and we'll be right back with all of the green cards.